Hello and welcome to the CIO video interview on the convergence of IT and OT and what that means for the future of the energy sector. I'm Doug Drinkwater, contributing editor at CIO, and today I'm joined by Science Baptiste Geoffroy, who is the Global Utilities Lead, IDC analyst Kevin Prouty, and Sean Stevenson, who is Head of Asset Data at Scottish Power. Thanks for joining me today, all. And in the next few minutes, we're going to be exploring the transformation of utilities, the rise of energy companies as technology companies, and how organisations like Scottish Power are reimagining how they manage networks, core systems, and their data as well. So a lot to unpack in 10 or so minutes, and hopefully towards the end, we'll finish with some practical tips to take back into the day job as well. So do stick around for that. But to get started, Kevin, obviously in your role at IDC, you're analysing market trends all the time. Can you give us a sense of how the energy sector is changing, not least given the societal, the economic, the technological changes we've really seen over the last kind of 12 to 18 months, really?
Sure. I think obviously I don't think it's a shock to anyone. The big focus has been on a lot more environmentally friendly power sources, green power sources. But I think a parallel track to that is the amount of data that's moving around on the grid and in the power generation sources, and how you manage that. And I think, the discussion around IT/OT convergence centers on that. How do you manage all your assets? How do you manage all those distributed energy sources? And again, the key is data, and not just on the OT side, not just on the operations side, but how does IT support managing that data and connecting to the customers?
Fantastic, thanks, Kevin. And then Baptiste, I think that's a nice lead into the work you guys are doing at Scient. Technologically, at least, what does that mean for the kind of energy suppliers' underlying infrastructure? Kevin's mentioned about data really becoming an asset. So how does that kind of fit into your belief that utilities companies themselves are having to become high-tech companies that can kind of enable this transformation?
Yeah, I think indeed that it's quite clear that utilities are changing at a very fast pace, and it will only accelerate in the coming years. It's about technology and digital, and everyone talks about that, but it's also about infrastructure and data. And by this, I mean having the right data foundation in place, to unlock the value that technology can deliver. So, just to iterate on what Kevin said, one of the challenges of utilities is really to address new requirements around the grid hosting capacity, make the network more flexible, the active management of the network. And when you look at those systems, they're really data hungry, and that drives the need, for data sharing across the enterprise. And that's not simple because, a utility generates a vast amount of data today, from smart meters, the data collected in the field, for inspection, control systems, edge devices, geospatial data. So if you don't get your data in order, you will be stuck, in your progression, to deliver the operation improvements and to make your network more flexible. So it's about interfacing, mission critical system, which are system of records, with the next generation, of application and services hosting on the cloud. And it can be a clash, if your infrastructure and data is not ready.
Fantastic. And Sean, some interesting opening comments there really on, I guess, that data explosion from the edge to core systems into cloud as well. So at Scottish Power, how is it meant for companies like yours in terms of managing data, not just, I guess, from a kind of management piece, but manage it as an asset, something that you can exploit over time?
Yeah, well, thanks, Doug. I mean, obviously, we're engaging really with three big significant sea changes in how we approach our activities, really driven by the UK government's, delivery of its ambitious net zero carbon targets. And then recently, as you'll be aware of, another announcement came out in terms of, delivering 40 gigawatts of generation by 2030. And that adds significant weight to those targets. Great opportunities, but clearly significant challenges. We believe we're leading on that journey, delivering good value for money, stable, secure supply, and making sure our most vulnerable customers aren't left behind. So we're looking at how we transition to that low carbon economy, the traditional electrical network governed by the kind of central mass power stations becoming much more decentralised. For example, over a quarter of all generating capacity in the UK is now on the distribution network. And then decarbonisation of heat and transport will also drive significant change. And then also, as we've mentioned, and Baptiste is related to the power of a data and how we harness that, and innovative approaches creating a step change for the pace our customers need. But information in our assets is always critical to us because it's the foundation of our ability to manage our responsibilities as an asset manager and fulfil our statutory legal obligations. But to deliver net zero, we have to maximise those opportunities, gathering data and information on how those network assets perform, but principally on the LV network this time, at a much more granular level than we've ever done, and how we integrate this information with innovative solutions to deliver wide-scale, customer value. We do a lot of innovation in our business. It's at the heart of our business. We've got some great examples of projects. For example, Project Fusion, which is a live trial of a local demand-side flexibility market, which informs us how we interact with mass generation LV connections, looking to alleviate congestion and avoid the traditional lay more copper network reinforcement, for example. And we'll be delivering some great improvements in our network data improvement programme over the last few years, combined with some process and field system improvements that can update directly from the field. But as Baptiste mentioned, as technology advances further, we get more and more measurement points through from smart meters, network devices, local monitoring, the Internet of Things, and that results in a significant increase in the available data to us. And it's important in our pathway also to be in a system operator at a distribution level. So that's a real opportunity for us to change the way we do things dramatically, but also deliver benefits for the customer as we move towards net zero.
So Sean, thanks for that kind of going through your experiences there and what you're working on. I mean, playing slight devil's advocate, it does sound kind of very rosy. And as we talk about things like smart meters and the Internet of Things, I suppose that comes with a degree of complexity around the numerous, factors from culture and buying at leadership level, data sharing. I think Baptiste mentioned a few minutes ago, there's security implications. So what are you seeing as the kind of key challenges there? Because it can't be smooth sailing by any stretch, I imagine.
No, absolutely not. I mean, the traditional distribution utility I joined many years ago over the past has changed dramatically, and we're now really an enabler for sort of major societal and economic change, and kind of we accept that challenge. So pace is clearly an important factor here, and we've got a number of well-developed plans in place to enable the change programmes. And our digital vision's got a number of key threads. So firstly, how do we monitor, control the network, integrating the Internet of Things data, the analytical platforms to produce intelligent information we can use? How do we develop options to manage peak loads in the LV network, the flexibility of the markets and support of the new business models? And whilst we'll always continue to make further improvements to the mastery of our data and its governance, we're looking also to deploy more digital technologies like, integrated portals, robotic process automation as an example. And finally, on that point, really investing heavily in our developing the digital skills of our people, obviously building a digital-ready workforce and recruiting non-traditional resources for us, such as data scientists. So some final points really in the key enablers I see. Firstly, as we mentioned, it's the IT-OT integration. So degree of integration between kind of the separate domains as they have been traditionally, we know will require strong architectural principles. The disciplines and how we manage them, the data architecture and the interfacing between systems. And I think some of the traditional approaches we've had are probably likely no longer to apply. So how do we operate them? The skills we need will change radically. Second point for me is around telecommunications infrastructure to support those processes. So we'll need wider coverage, more resilience, greater security, but we need to make sure that we deliver that challenge in a cost-effective way. And we don't see really that operating in one single technology strand, such as 5G or fibre. The technologies will deploy differently. And we'll need careful planning and integration, and regulatory treatments must be a factor for consideration. And to close, I guess the other one for me really is cybersecurity. So the application of these wider digital footprints will inevitably result in a greater exposure to cyber risk, more solutions required, greater data volumes, more complex architecture. We have, for example, reviewed our maturity in some of these areas against the Security Network and Information Systems regs, and we already have got a good defined planning for a number of projects in a Rio T2 business plan. So in summary, I think it's a really exciting and challenging future, but I think good progress is already underway.
It sounds like you've got your hands full there, Sean. A lot of challenges across those peers of people, process, and technology, I guess, on that front.
Absolutely.
I mean, Baptiste, just coming to you on that, how do you get past some of those challenges there? You know, we've touched on the IT/OT convergence, which seems to be the hub really of driving intelligent energy systems. But as I said, it sounds like a lot of these challenges are as much about the culture piece as the technology piece behind it as well.
Yeah, I totally concur with Sean. You know, I think, the IT/OT convergence is actually a fairly new discipline, in utilities, they're on the journey, I think, and there's a number of technologies and things, that can be leveraged, from other industries like telecom or even oil and gas, in terms of how they set up their data, their infrastructure, to deliver on the 360 to the customer or digital twins, for example, for oil and gas companies. So at the moment, we really see utilities spending time and effort to have the right data to deliver a specific program in most cases, or they want to implement a new distribution management system, and they are talking about data readiness, again, to support the program. But in the near future, we expect utilities to, transition towards, a next generation enterprise architecture and data governance. That's really what we expect to see coming to utilities. And that must be built in a way that is future-proof, of course, but also to address requirements at different levels. So you've got the first level, that is a mission-critical layer with all the system of records, like, distribution management systems, GIS, enterprise asset management. And those are very important systems for utilities because they keep the lights on in a way. But then you've got the decision support layer, that is primarily cloud-based intelligence, to drive decision across different departments, vegetation management, network planning, asset management. And then, you've got the layer, the engagement layer in terms of data that you want to be made available to the users, the field inspection team, the asset management team, network planners, even in utilities, 75% of the workforce is on the field and they need to be equipped with the right data. So that's what we expect to see coming to the utilities markets. And today we see, different approaches emerging, master data management, data lakes, data mesh, data fabric. And it's hard to say if one will prevail, but most likely, each utility will have their own blueprint based on their legacy systems and the priorities they want to address.
Fantastic, thanks, Baptiste. And that's a lovely segue actually into Kevin. You opened us up right at the start in terms of how you saw the utilities market today. I mean, how do some of those comments around the data changes, the data transformation we're seeing fit with what you see kind of going forward? And I know when we spoke before, you were mentioning that kind of data is a new commodity in utilities and customer-driven utilities being the new normal. So just talk us through a bit about where we're going, where we are today, and where we're going next.
Sure. I think there's opportunities and challenges. I think the opportunity right now for utilities is around what we typically call resilient decision making, and resilient decision making means using all the data that's available, whether it's IT, OT. It really doesn't matter. It's about taking that decision and being able to make faster, more effective decisions, anywhere from short-term stuff around customers to longer-term stuff around, let's say, asset lifecycle management. I think the real threat to utilities continues to be what we call the disaggregation of the grid, and that is as more and more locations and points of activity start putting together their own power generation sources. Now it becomes that much more difficult for the utility to manage all those distributed energy sources as well as its distribution. And I think the key to that, and I talked about it as being one of the opportunities, is that treating data as a commodity almost as valuable as the power itself. So I think that that's how utilities need to start making the decisions moving forward.
Fantastic, Kevin. Thank you so much for those kind of wrap up comments and insights. Really, we've actually come to the end of this. It was quite a short video today, but Baptiste, for any viewers that are watching today and they want more information and in particular on how Scient can help, where should they be going to?
Obviously, we can be contacted on the social media, scient.com as well. And please follow us on our social media as well.
Fantastic. So scient.com, or you can reach out to our speakers on all professional social media networks as well. So Baptiste, Kevin, Sean, really appreciate your time and insights today. Thank you so much for taking part.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. And of course, thanks to you viewers for tuning in today. As Baptiste says, you can go to scient.com for more information, or cio.com as well. The CIO, I'm Doug Drinkwater. Thanks, goodbye, we'll see you soon.